If you don't brainwash yourself, society will. Someone else will brainwash you. This video is going to be about brainwashing, and typically brainwashing has kind of a negative connotation or negative vibe to it, but the truth is you're always being brainwashed, because whatever you're focusing on, that's the direction in which you go. So there's this thing called the law of immersion, and it's the idea that fish are wet, right? Obviously fish are wet. Why? Because they are in water. So whatever environment that you are in encompasses you, and then eventually that becomes a part of you, right? So in the psychological field, we call this social learning theory, right? Whatever environment you are, you learn from that environment, and you start repeating that environment. You become a product of that environment, right? So if you don't spend time brainwashing yourself, someone else is going to brainwash you, or something else is going to brainwash you. So you get whatever you focus on. There's this concept that wherever you focus your attention, that's where your energy goes. It's just like it's like driving a car, right? For all those driving cars, when you first were driving cars, you'd go to check your blind spot, right? But you would turn at the same time, because wherever you're focusing, that's where you end up going. For all those gun owners out there, people like shooting guns, you know that you are 100% responsible for where your bullet lands. It doesn't matter if it was an accident or not, you're still responsible. So make sure that you have a target, make sure you have a goal, you know where you're going, because no matter where you land, you're 100% responsible. And I don't believe I'm alone in this. I think every human goes through this at some point, where you didn't know any better, and you might have made a mistake, or you did the best you could with the information that you had, and then you end up at your final destination. You're like, I didn't want to be here. This is not what I meant. This is not where I wanted to be. But you can't really blame anyone, right? A lot of people blame their parents. They should have taught me better, or they blame a spouse or a boyfriend, girlfriend. But you can't really blame anyone, because ultimately you are making the decisions. And side note, this is why it's so important for you to make your decisions and not people please, because at the end of the day, you're the one sleeping with your decisions. At the end of your life, you're the one who has to live with your decisions. But I digress on that point. So if you are not spending time brainwashing yourself and diving into what you want to believe, diving into how you want to think, diving into how you want to live, and focusing on that daily, every other day, at least weekly. Monthly doesn't work, by the way. In order to build a habit, it takes like 21 days of doing just about the same thing every single day. It takes 90 days to build a lifestyle. I don't know how true that part is. It's probably pretty true. You have neuroplasticity. So the more you do something, the better you're going to get at it, or the more it becomes habitual. In a past video, I talked about how 95% of your behaviors actually come from a subconscious or an unconscious part of your brain. And that's the part I'm talking about. Habits. You stand up and you balance out. You'll immediately balance yourself. Well, that's part of the 95%. Like, you don't even have to think about it. You don't have to think about driving a car, writing your name, talking. You don't have to relearn it every single time. That's part of it. So if you're trying to create other habitual behaviors or thoughts or beliefs, you have to focus on those daily, because where the mind goes, the person will follow, right? The saying used to be, where the mind goes, the man follows, but it's not just for men, it's for everyone. No matter no matter who you are, sex, gender, race, religion, whatever you focus on, you become. So just like in sports psychology 101, right? Your coach would tell you something such as, imagine yourself jumping over the hurdles, every single hurdle. Imagine it first. Imagine crossing that finish line. Imagine catching that ball. Imagine making the field goal. Whatever it is, you want to imagine it first, and because you're practicing it in your mind. Even the Bible talks about that if, whatever you do in your mind, you're actually doing in real life. And it's a form of practice, because no matter what you're thinking about, that's where you end up. Okay, so the first step to this, the first step that needs to take place is you need to have a goal. Like I said, it doesn't matter if the gun goes off accidentally, you're still responsible for where the bullet goes. No matter if you have a goal or not, you're still moving forward and you're going to end up somewhere. So if you don't have a goal in mind, you're going to end up somewhere, and you might end up at a place where it's like, oh no. Now, luck does play a role, and I'll make a video on that. It's, luck versus work, which are, that's a good concept, but luck does play a role, and sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. But regardless, if you don't have something you're aiming at, how do you know where you're going, right? So the first thing is having a goal. Let's say you want to be more positive, all right? And you realize, just like in another video, I talked about how observation is always your first step. Observing, like understanding what you're thinking, right? If you can observe your thoughts or practice metacognition, thinking about your thoughts, you can identify what beliefs you don't want to agree with, what thoughts you don't want to agree with, what behaviors you don't want to agree with and you don't want in your life. So once you identify that, then you create a goal. Well, how do I want to think? How do I want to act? What do I want to believe? Who do I want to be? Okay. And so some areas that you can look at for setting goals would be like finances, relationships, career, hobbies, things like this, your spirituality. Regardless, you have to have a goal. The second part about this is practicing on a daily basis, right? There's this idea, and I don't know the full background. I need to research this a little bit more, but there's this idea of casting spells, and that actually came from spelling, right? Actually spelling things out, and that does trigger something different in your brain than just talking or typing it, but spelling things. So I'm a big advocate for journaling, and if you can journal your goals, you're more likely to reach them, and that's been proven several times. The more that you immerse yourself in what you're going for, the better you're gonna be, okay? So go back to the being more positive. Let's say that you want to get over the negativity, right? Then you write down a goal. Okay, well, first of all, what am I very negative about? What is bothering me? And there's a whole idea of like finding out why that bothers you, why you are where you are, all that stuff. But sometimes it doesn't matter how you got there. Sometimes it doesn't matter. You could find out why you are where you are and who you are, or why you are the way you are. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter. You gain some insight and that can be helpful, but really it comes down to, well, how do you want to be, right? How do you want to be? Who do you want to be? And you practice daily imagining yourself as that person, right? You practice daily guiding yourself through something like guided meditation or guided imagery. You imagine yourself becoming that person and what it's like to be that person. And I know that this is kind of hippie-esque, but since everything is technically energy, you have to embody a certain type of energy to be that person. It's been proven that, different thoughts vibrate at different levels, right? Negative thoughts are, I believe, lower vibration, where positive thoughts are more of a higher vibration. And that's why you're like, man, I just didn't vibe with these people, or I just got a bad vibe from that person. It's like that's where that comes from. And so if you're trying to increase your vibration, so to speak, that you have to embody the energy of being positive. You have to embody those thoughts and behaviors, and imagine yourself being that person. And then your feelings actually follow. You do this long enough, eventually you do become that person. We live in a society where it's a have, do, be. If I won the lottery, then I could do these things and I would be this person. But the truth is, you have to flip that around. It has to be, you have to be that person first. And so that you can work on having these things, or be that person, so you can do these things, and then you'll have what that person would attract into their life. Now here's an ironic thing. The law of attraction isn't actually real. We call it the law of attraction, but it really should be called the law of reflection. Okay, your life is a direct reflection of your beliefs. So if there's something that you don't like in your life, just know that that comes from a belief of yours. If there's something that is bothering you about your life, you didn't mean to end up here, you don't want to be there, you don't want to talk that way, you don't want to think that way, those are all parts of your belief. And then your belief creates action, and then your action creates your environment. So if you don't like a certain aspect of your life, you have to find out why you believe what you believe about that. Maybe not why you believe, but you have to look at what you believe about that, and then you have to change that belief, and then practice pouring energy and time and meditation and spelling into the belief that you want to have, and so that can be reversed and changed. Now, I'm going to go into this in a whole nother video because I'm already over time, but there's an idea of how meditation can actually sink you down into a theta state, theta brainwaves, which is where you are in the first 6 or 7 years of your life. It's also where you are in hypnosis, right? And then that's why it goes right into the subconscious, reprograms it. There are 4 ways to reprogram the subconscious, but one, and the most popular way, is repetition. Repetition. The more you do it, the better you get. The more the neuroplasticity creates these pathways in your brain, and then you're more likely to be that person. You create that habit. So, with that being said, if you would like any one-on-one coaching or counseling and more information about this, please feel free to reach out. My email is in the description. I'll also put it on the screen. Like this, subscribe, share if you know anyone that needs to hear this. Until next time, my friends.